Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to UBC Future Global Leaders Summer 2021 information session. My name is Aidan Cleary and I'm coordinator with UBC Future Global Leaders. And I'm delighted to have joining me this evening two of our summer instructors who are going to speak about their courses. Our first instructor is Dan Small, Research Associate with the University of British Columbia, and Atala Kerandish, Postdoctoral Research Fellow, also with the University of British Columbia. We have a lot to cover this evening, and it always is helpful to have an agenda to guide that discussion. I've made our introduction. In a moment, I'll give you some tips on how to participate in our session this evening, in particular in our question and answer period. I will give a brief overview of the program this summer, and then I will hand it over to our first instructor, Dan Small, who will speak about his course this summer, Crime and Society, Contemporary Topics, and then followed by Atta, who will speak about our course, Introduction to Engineering. And then we'll move over to Q&A. We'll hopefully have some time, about 10 to 15 minutes to take your questions, closing at approximately 5 p.m. Now for those tips. So for user experience, we have muted your audio, but you can elect to turn on or off your video. For viewing, we do recommend that you go to the view options, which is at the top, typically at the top right hand of your screen. And if you click the arrow on the drop-down box, you will see side by side. We suggest that you click on this, as this will permit you to see the speaker and his or her presentation today. Obviously, at any stage, you can switch between speaker view, gallery view, whatever is your preference. And now to participate in our Q&A this evening, we have turned the chat feature off, and instead we're using a platform called Slido. So I invite you to open a new tab in your browser, either on the device you're using now, or if you have a second device, such as your phone. Please open a new tab on that browser and type slido.com. You'll be asked for an event code, and that event code today is FGL13. I'll just repeat that. So again, I'm inviting you to open a new tab on your browser, type slido.com, our event code FGL13. I will repeat this later because I know people are entering late, so I will repeat this information again. Also, it's very important to note, to let you know that we are recording today's session, and the recording will be available on Extended Learning YouTube channel very soon, possibly tomorrow. So on our website, current website, you'll see a list of our summer courses. Today, we're going to mostly focus on our summer 2021 academic courses with our two guest instructors today. But I also would like to touch on one of our more popular courses as well, Your Guide to Getting into a Canadian University. I know we have a lot of BC students enrolled in our courses and also attending this evening's session and interested in our courses. So it is important that we do want to let you know about the UBC President Bursary Programme. We award 20 bursaries a year, and that bursary covers full tuition for 1 3-week online course. The application process is open now, and the deadline is May 28th. Please don't take that May 28th as a long way off. It is on a first come, first served basis. So I encourage you, if you are interested in applying, please apply sooner rather than later. And just to give you an idea of the eligibility for our bursary, well, first of all, you must be a grade 11 student attending school in a British Columbian school. You must have an overall average of 80% or higher, and the same in English or equivalent. You must be a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, and live in a lower income household. Now, more details about that income and income household is on the application process. So it's better explained there. It's also important for the eligibility in this bursary is that your parent or caregivers did not attend a university and did not graduate. And Indigenous students are especially encouraged to apply. So as I mentioned, I do want to cover one of our popular courses before we move into the academic, Your Guide to Getting into a Canadian University. Just some top highlights on this course. So it is a 3-week intensive, where the expectation is that students are online between 8 to 10 hours using UBC's online platform. Flexibility, it's important to note here that there are no online live classes, or there are no live classes. Basically, there is a start date and an end date, but you as a student can elect to be on time. You can make it fit around your schedule. So you can log in anytime and from anywhere. You have the opportunity to communicate one-on-one with your instructor on a discussion board and interact with classmates from all around the world. Currently, we have students from over 12 countries enrolled in our summer 2021 courses. At the end of the course, you'll receive a UBC Future Global Leaders Certificate of Completion. In this course, Your Guide to Getting into Canadian University, you may ask, what can I expect to learn? Well, one of 4 top things. One, you'll gain the skills required to create convincing and memorable undergraduate applications. So get some skills around writing that application that will sort of push you up. You'll do your own personal research around the universities that you're interested in and potential programs that you're interested in. You'll identify them, and then you'll start to create a timeline. What are their deadlines? So you'll create that and have that on hand for yourself, so that you make sure that you don't miss any deadlines. Explore your skills and accomplishments. So this is interesting in that I know, if you were as a high school student, to ask yourself, well, what accomplishments have I achieved over high school? And I know there are many high school students that find that really difficult to respond to. So in this course, you will look at those, you'll explore that closer, look at the skills and the accomplishments you have achieved. You'll identify them, and along with identifying them, you'll build a vocabulary to be able to communicate that effectively in your applications. All the time you're doing this, you are receiving detailed feedback on writing assignments, such as a personal statement, because there are some universities that we know that look for personal statements. So you have the opportunity to write that personal statement and have it ready and you receive feedback from the instructor in this course, and be ready when the application process time arrives in the fall of the year. Requirements. First one is in English. We have international students that participate in this, so IELTS 6.0, ages 15 to 18, but really for this course, we recommend grade 11 or grade 12. And also, we recognize, given current circumstances and COVID, that many students have elected to defer university. So it's also a good course for students who are recent high school students and are taking a gap year instead. I thought this would be helpful to share. It's a testimonial from a student who participated in this course last summer. And just very quickly, she stated, before starting the course, I had no idea what I wanted to do in university or where to go. Taking this course helped me identify courses and complete my personal statement. And as I enter grade 12, I am less stressed about the application process and excited for my future. And now we'll take a look at the academic courses that we're going to focus more on this evening. So some highlights again for the academic courses are, students in these courses will have the potential to explore their academic interests in a first-year level university course. For now, we're doing business engineering, psychology, and some more, which I'll give the topics in a moment. These courses are also 3-week, totaling between 40 to 45 hours of learning. Now, the difference between these courses and the course I just spoke about, Your Guide to Getting into Canadian University, is that students are online every day. Well, I should say Monday to Friday for 2 hours a day. So again, students are online Monday to Friday for 2 hours a day, attending a live virtual class with your professor or instructor. That time of that class, it depends on the session. We have 2 sessions. The session 1, which starts July 5th, their evening sessions 5 to 7 p.m. and then the session 2 are morning sessions. And all these details are on our website. There may, depending on the class, there may be extra hours required for reading, researching, and participating in discussion forums. Once again, we are also using Canvas, which is the online learning platform that UBC undergraduate students use. And you'll also have the opportunity to meet current UBC students, and they'll help guide you through your studies. And also you have the opportunity to hear what their experience is as a university student. As I mentioned earlier, interact with classmates from around the world in a virtual student lounge. And again, we have students from over 12 countries enrolled in our classes this year. Those topics: business and economics, engineering and technology, which is the course that we're featuring tonight, health and life sciences, history, law, and politics. Again, this is the course crime and society, contemporary topics that we're featuring next. And then finally, the topic health and life sciences. And I believe, without further ado, I can invite our instructor, Dan Small, and invite you to take over the screen.
All right. Well, I'm very excited to be here and to participate again. This is the third time I've had the opportunity to participate in Future Global Leaders, and I really enjoy meeting students, young students from around the world. This course really examines crime from the point of view of psychology, sociology, anthropology, and criminology, and really takes an opportunity to apply social science methods to understand and address crime on a number of levels. And so who might take this course? It would be people who are interested in any of these fields: criminology, anthropology, sociology, psychology, law, enforcement, and possibly people who are interested in mental health or forensic psychiatry or public policy. The course is, by its very nature, multidisciplinary, and I'm someone with a multidisciplinary background. So I'm a medical anthropologist, I'm a cultural anthropologist, I'm really also a sociologist. I have a degree in psychology and a degree in sociology and anthropology, an MPhil, and then a PhD. And I'm interested in approaching these issues from a variety of different backgrounds and angles. My own background, to give you a sense of the instructor, is as follows. I've worked in the mental health field in that borderland between mental health and the law. I've worked with people who historically were found not criminally responsible due to mental disorder or not guilty by reason of insanity. And I will draw on my experience working in a number of different realms. I've also worked in community mental health for a number of years in the Clubhouse movement and in psychosocial rehabilitation. And much of my more recent work, I guess, in the last 20 years, has really been working with particularly marginalized groups of people living in the community, attempting to address inequality and to create services, healthcare and support and housing services for people. To that end, I was one of the founders of North America's first supervised injection facility, which students will hear about as part of this course. I've also created a number of social enterprises, and these are really socially conscious businesses. This one in particular I'm highlighting in this slide is one where women who've been street involved, who are recovering from addictions, have an opportunity to work in a chocolate shop. This chocolate shop still exists today, and they can become chocolatiers and essentially make chocolate bean to bar after having gone through a recovery program. I've been a part of a whole range of these types of services and setting them up and evaluating them in the community, including some cafes and a community store for low-income people, which is still in existence in Vancouver today, as well as a range of rehabilitative programs, all really aimed at reaching people who've been pushed into the shadows of the community on a number of levels. That includes a community bank called Pigeon Park Savings, which was put in place and still exists today to try to combat financial exclusion for people who are living below the poverty line in Canada. But much of my work has been about addressing inequality on a whole bunch of different levels. And this really has brought me into a realm where I have a sense of crime in society. And you'll hear about that a little bit more as I tell you a bit more about the course. My background has also included work in the medical regulatory realm. As a medical anthropologist and as a member of the community, I was involved in the College of Physicians and Surgeons of BC, which is where people who get their medical degrees would apply for licensure and be supervised by their peers for a period of about 14 years. I was also involved in medical assessment through the Medical Council of Canada for a period of 7 years. So all this to say, much of my center of gravity has largely been in the community and applying academic ideas out on the ground with an everyday experience of life. And so some of the assumptions that I put forward in this course and will try to convince the students and excite the students about relate to a fundamental idea, which is that crime really can't be understood without sociology, without anthropology, without social science, and without history. That is to say, we cannot understand crime without looking at its social, historical, and geographic context. And let me give you a little bit of a sense of what I mean by that. Essentially, what I'm saying is that crimes don't just fall from the sky. They are not natural, but there are events and social phenomena that really are constructed in a particular way, in a particular time, in a particular place. And I will try to convince the class of students that this is very important and that we need the disciplines of sociology and anthropology and sociology and criminology in order to adequately understand crime. So when we talk about social construction of crime, what do we mean? What do we mean when we say crime is socially relative? To some extent, this slide gives us a sense of that. Here are some images I took from the Vancouver archives, which show alcohol, which was seized by the Vancouver police during a time when alcohol was illegal. That is to say, alcohol was considered illegal to own. It was a crime to own alcohol. And of course, today, that is no longer the case in Canada. And this really applies to a number of different drugs, and drugs are a particularly interesting issue when it comes to crime in society still today in the world today. And we can think about other examples, I'm sure many of you can, like cocaine and heroin and opium. These are all prescriptions which illustrate that at one time or another you could actually purchase these things at stores or at pharmacies. These are prescriptions that I own, that I purchased these prescriptions for interest, for archival reasons. And of course, if we think about more demonized types of drugs like heroin, which is a particularly complex or opiate-related drugs and kind of complex issue, you can see that in today's context, heroin is something that is really no longer illegal, but something that is provided for medical treatment. And of course, over the past 100 years, there have been many drugs, including heroin, which were considered crimes in order to own them or to use them. This is similarly the case with marijuana. Again, this would depend on your context and where you live in the world. Many of you will be in places where, for example, marijuana would be considered an illegal drug. In Canada, it was for a century, approximately, or perhaps a little less than that. And then, as you can see from this slide, in the relatively recent times, we transitioned through a period of it not only being legal for medical purposes, but now legal for the purposes of recreation. And that goes so far, as this slide shows, that the province of British Columbia actually provides licenses for retailers to sell this drug, and they hire people to sell cannabis, as this slide shows. Historically, and not that long ago, this would have been highly illegal. Here's a job application that is posted by the province of British Columbia, actually hiring someone to sell a drug which in an eye blink historically would have been illegal. Here's a professorship at the University of British Columbia examining cannabis and focusing on cannabis. Again, if you juxtapose this side by side with history and you look at this poster off to the side for a movie which illustrates a time when this would have been considered impossible. And yet it is not today. It's not impossible at all. And if we think back even farther, this might seem even more absurd to some of the students who drink coffee or tea. There was even a time when coffee itself was illegal, as this slide shows, because it was thought to perpetuate lethargy and laziness. And yet, of course, today, coffee is a beverage which is consumed in many instances, in some jurisdictions, even more than water by the general population, certainly in Canada. So what's the goal of this course? The course is aimed really at doing sociological analysis. And I'm going to bring you into this busy intersection between society and the law, between society and crime, and really to present a case that in order to understand, address, prevent crime adequately, we have to understand that it is sociological, it's socially constructed in a number of ways. The themes for the course are ones that I've chosen based on my experience, my work, and my interests. And of course, I can't cover all the topics, but I'm going to cover a bunch, and this gives you a sense of them. In the beginning of course, I'll begin to introduce the topics and tell you about ways that we examine crime, some of the sociological methods for defining and measuring crime. This will carry through for a couple of days. We will then watch a video called The Highway of Tears, which is a very poignant video, which tells the story in Canada of a group of murdered and missing women who disappeared along a highway in British Columbia, and for whom there was a national inquiry, which has become very important in Canada's history and in Canada's relationship in many ways and treatment of its First Nations and Indigenous peoples. And so we will get a sense of crime in the context of what I will describe as structural violence. And in particular, I'll draw my experience working in the Downtown East Side, which is the poorest area in British Columbia, where a number of murdered and missing women disappeared and were sadly and tragically victims of a serial killer. I will tell you that story on a number of levels, in part because I knew some of the murdered and missing women personally and I worked with them, and in part because it gives us an opportunity to see how social science could have been used to capture, to hunt serial killers, and to have caught this serial killer who unfortunately killed dozens of people before they were caught. And it's an example of when we did not use good social science in the service of preventing crime. And I will try to build a case for how social science, in this case, geographic profiling, could be used to hunt serial killers and serial criminals. So students may find this interesting. I certainly do. And as we think about these structural overarching variables, sociological, societal, that impact crime, one of the most obvious illustrations of this would be racialization and the impact of racism in North America. And we will look at the way racism finds its way into drug policy and into the way that we incarcerate people in North America. You will learn, for example, that you need sociology to understand how it's possible that America, the country that's just a very short distance, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes away from where I'm lecturing right now, has the very highest rate of incarceration in the world, and yet Canada, only an hour away, has a rate which is somewhere between 114th and 140th in the world. You can't understand really rates of incarceration, which is the way society to some extent approaches crime, without understanding these social variables. We'll also draw on some of my experience around supervised injection and the establishment of North America's first supervised injection to look at this in the context of the law in North America. Another very interesting illustration of the impact of sociology in crime. And in this particular instance, in Canada, when I first helped to establish the North America's first supervised injection facility, there was only one, and it was in Vancouver at 139 East Hastings. Today, there are over 40 in Canada. And if we think about this idea of social construction, if we just go across the border and we look at the United States, how many do they have? And that answer is possibly surprising to you. They have zero. And you cannot understand this. You can't understand how we can have a program, an approach to crime in society around drugs, illicit drugs in one country, which is so dramatically different relative to another without understanding sociology. And so this will be a part of how I'll make this case. We will also look at police and changing roles. One of the areas I've been a part of advocating for is the use of harm reduction within policing. And I'll give you a lecture and some introduction to some of the work by police in North America to actually save lives, so that they have become not only protectors of public safety, but protectors of public health by actually administering drugs to people who are overdosing from opiates and thereby keeping them alive. Another area that we'll discuss in the course is an area called restorative justice, which is really, I argue, one of the oldest forms of justice, which is quite different from more common forms of justice today, which really in our criminal justice system make victims to some extent pushed out of the picture, and criminals are held accountable to the Queen or to the government. In a restorative justice approach, what happens is that the criminal is made accountable to the victim themselves. This we'll also watch some videos. In this particular video, which I'll show the class, you'll see some young students really who come into contact with the people who they victimized in a community by burning down a bridge. And this gives the victims an opportunity to meet the people who victimized them, the criminals, and to heal the victims, to some extent to heal the community, and to some extent to heal the perpetrators of crime. And while this might seem unusual, and people often wonder, is it possible? How far could such a model go? This particular video, which we'll look at in the course, describes a woman in North Vancouver whose husband was actually murdered by a young man who she went on to meet and to ultimately befriend. And to do public presentations with an education in this realm of restorative justice. So another area that we will look at will be, again, forensic psychiatry, which is a realm where I worked with people who are not criminally responsible due to mental disorder. And so we'll look at this and what this means and how it's possible for someone to be found not guilty, even though they actually committed what would be considered a crime, such as murder. And I've worked with people who have actually murdered someone who were found not guilty by reason of mental disorder. And we'll look at how that's possible. We'll also look in this course at injustice within the justice system and really the miscarriage of justice, which is when people are wrongfully convicted. And we've had several high-profile examples of this in Canada and North America. One of the final themes we'll look at in the course will be in relation to social activism. And this is an area which is very interesting in terms of sociology and the law. And that is, what do you do when the law is unjust, when the law perhaps might be immoral? And are there steps that people can take in order to try to change law? And if they do that in the form of public protest, which is something that young people are often very interested in and examining in their context in the world, what does it mean? And what is lawful and what is unlawful? You will learn in this class that in Canada, public protest is protected by the Constitution of Canada, but we will look at this in detail sociologically. Of course, in the end, we will have an overview of the key themes, and I'll try to once again convince you how important sociology is, how essential sociology is in order to understand crime in society, that it means much more than just the law. And as part of this, I'm going to attempt all the way through to bring you into a moral borderland, a complex and interesting area where we will essentially enter the fog, the sociological fog, and to attempt to see things we might not have seen before. As part of that process, I really want to engage people in team building, in participation, in making the place, the classroom space safe for people to get to know each other, to know one another's names, to share their perspectives safely, to know it's okay to have a perspective which is different from someone else, and to examine these areas in a space which is encouraging discussion, and where we begin to ask questions, not so very much answer them as ask them, and to see the differences from our different perspectives, our different social, geographic standpoints. And this is why Future Global Leaders is so special, in that we get to see people positioned all around the world and their very different perspectives on what would otherwise be considered common sense approaches to crime. I really want this course to be a safe place for you to share your perspective. And in so doing, I hope find some unexpected discoveries, some things you hadn't quite thought about before. And so with that, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the Future Global Leaders community. Once again, I'm really excited to meet the class.
Thank you so much, Dan. My goodness, your slides, they're so artistic and engaging. And so thank you for sharing that. And yeah, and who doesn't love geographic profiling? My goodness, I may just drop in on that lecture, Dan. So I'm going to grab back the screen and just move back to my presentation. And just to, it's been mentioned a couple of times again that the learning platform that our students work on, the same learning platform that UBC undergraduate students are using, UBC Campus. It's a very intuitive platform to use. I know our high school students, given the time that we're in, are all mostly working online or a mix of online and in class. So we don't anticipate any issues there. Look at what our dates and fees are for 2021. So we do recommend for our international students that they have a minimum IELTS score of 6.0 or equivalent. Class discussion is really important, as certainly as you can see from Dan's presentation, there will be lots of discussion there. So it's really important. We want you to enjoy the course and have that ability to participate. So be very careful. You really consider that as you sign up for courses. Again, the age is 15 to 18 and must have completed grade 10 or equivalent. And again, as I mentioned earlier, also suitable for students in gap year. Important to note here that there is no application for these courses. It's no transcripts or school reports are required. You simply register online on our website. Now, the fees and dates, so your guide, and we have an English writing course, which is for the ESL, EAL audience. They have our summer dates are July 5th to 25th and July 26th to August 15th. In fact, all our summer courses all have the same date. So again, session 1, 5th to 25th of July, and then the second session starts right after that at July 26th, concluding August 15th. The fees for your guide to getting into Canadian University is $700, as is our academic writing toolkit. And then for our academic courses, $850. And now I'd like to ask Atta to take over the screen and look forward to your presentation on Introduction to Engineering.
Thank you, Aideen. So hello, everyone. My name is Atta Kirandesh. I'm a postdoc research fellow and a sessional lecturer at the University of British Columbia at the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering. And for this summer, I'm going to be your instructor for the Introduction to the Engineering course. This course is offered in 2 sessions. Or 2 sections. Section A is from July 5th to 23rd in the late evening, 7 to 9 p.m. And the other section is from July 26th to August 13th in the morning, 9 to 11 a.m. Vancouver time. So each of these sections actually it has 15 lectures, and we'll have mainly lectures and group activities online. So as a part of engineering, so just to give you an insight about what I'm going to talk about in my class is, first of all, we need to have a common ground in terms of the concept of engineering. Who is an engineer and what does an engineering mean? So one definition is that the branch of science and technology concerned with the design, building, and use of engines, machines, and structures. So for each of these elements, we are going to talk in details, what does a design mean, what does building mean, what does manufacturing mean, what the how does different fields of engineering actually contribute to this field. And in general, this is a quote from Michio Kaku. He's a scientific writer. He has 4 great books about the physics in real life. So what we usually consider as impossible are simply engineering problems. Of course, there is a barrier there, which is the law of physics. So if the law of physics not preventing them, then that can be solved. It doesn't matter how big it is, even if it's COVID, we can solve it, which I'm going to talk about it a little bit. But when we usually talk about engineering, the first things that comes to our mind is something like this, like lots of mathematics, lots of different equations, or something like this. Like this is for electrical engineering. The other one was common in different like field of engineering. But that was the back end of it. So when we look at the outcome or front end of the engineering, we see that actually this is something that an engineer actually can design. But of course, in order to design such a thing, starting from single bolt to the dashboard to the springs to the material of these axes, we need to break it down first. We call it divide and conquer. So we just break it down to a smaller part, and then we can design them one by one. So, and that's where actually all those equations comes to place. So, and aside from that, engineers actually do lots of cool stuff. Like they are involved even in when you're going to a dentist. You can see lots of different applications of engineering in let's say a crown or a root canal or a filling or simple filling. Aside from that, the most sort of thing that you see about engineering is cars. So you see it on the ground. That's something that you see it every day, but it might be something that you see not that often, like rocket ships, or it might be something that you mainly never see in your life. Just maybe you saw the picture. It's a petrochemical sort of, or it's a refinery that it takes crude oil and it turns it to different products. So you use the product, but you didn't see it from closely. The other application of the engineering can be robotics, but in each of these examples, actually, it's not just for one engineering. That's why actually we have different fields of engineering, and we're going to talk about them one by one, like the material of this one, the electronics behind it. So we know that if you're interested in, I don't know, in circuits and designing that, what you need to focus more on, or if you are interested in manufacturing, what field of engineering you need to focus more on. Aside from that, other application of the material engineering, like here where material engineering and electrical engineering comes together, and they design and manufacture these PN junctions, which is like a semiconductor that can translate the sunlight to the electricity, or vice versa. They can translate electricity to light, or to UV light, let's say, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. Or fuel cell, the next generation of the cars, like hydrogen fuel cell cars, we're going to talk about it. And aside from them, since we are in the COVID area, they say we'll see the role of engineering in addressing the issue of COVID. So, for example, these sanitizing sort of gadgets, like this one, which is a toothbrush that you can just put your toothbrush in, you close it, and your toothbrush get disinfected. So, or the other one for the same concept for lens contacts, or even for your cell phone. So you can put your cell phone in a box, you close it, and get disinfected. How does that work? Actually, we're going to talk about it. Another cool application is these small like gadget under the sink, which we can use it in hospitals, where is the one of the source of COVID actually you can find, or SARS-CoV-2, you can find it in hospitals where the patients are hospitalized in. So we can have these gadgets under the sink. So when they wash their hand, when they wash the clothes, when they just discharge any liquid to that sink, it can disinfect everything before sending it to the sewage and avoid spreading it. Or even we can, or we'll talk about the application of engineering in order to disinfect the surfaces. For example, these excavators or escalators and moving walks where there is a rail and everyone is touching it. So in order to avoid further spread of this virus, actually we can disinfect it when it goes inside the rail. Or we have the list is it can be extended. Like this one, this is like an Amazon robot that can walk through the aisles in a grocery shop, and it can disinfect the surface of the freezers. Or even in cars. So we know that in any contained sort of room, there is a chance that the virus actually transfer from one person to another. So in the future cars, actually we'll have some sort of a disinfection unit or module inside the car that can circulate the air, and this while it's disinfecting the air. And these are all concepts to this point, but we are going to talk about whether this can avoid or this can help us fight the spread of coronavirus, or whether these options can be an option for avoiding future outbreaks or virus outbreaks. So these are all the advantage or the good part from the good parts of being an engineer. But of course, we as an engineer, or the engineers actually, they cause some disaster in the history as well. We won't ignore those. For example, we're going to talk about this Flixborough disaster in the UK, where 2/3 of their worker actually died because of the leak in a combustible gas inside this unit. We're going to talk about Titanic, Chernobyl. So and these are the examples that we're going to cover, and we see the role of different engineering in them. But in general, if I want to go through the topics that I'm going to cover in the course, I can start with the definitions, definition of engineer, definition of engineering. Then we're going to get familiar with different topics or different engineering fields like mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, biological engineering, material, mining, civil. We're going to talk about them and see and talk about your interest, which one actually suits you better. And we're going to go a little bit in detail, so we get the common concept between these engineering, and we're going to talk about them more in detail, like the concept of heat and energy, transport phenomena, like fluid mechanics. We're going to talk more about the water treatment, and at the end, definitely, we're going to talk about the ethics in the engineering. So if I want to go with one class, so each session of my class actually includes a summary of the previous session. So we're going to have a Q&A. It's going to last around like 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to have one break for each session. And in the break, actually, it's mainly a time for us to, if you have any question, you want to discuss it like a one by one, that's a good time to do it. And we have actually the ability to do it. So we have breakout rooms in our platform, and we can sit together one by one during these breaks, which last 10 to 15 minutes. Some days we might have like a short quizzes. My course actually is not like a mark-based course, so don't worry about the marks. But I want you to be sort of active in the course. So everything is going to be in groups. So you're going to be in groups of 3 or 4 people, depends on the number of students, and you're going to stick to that group. You're going to have some group activities inside the class, and we're going to have some assignment as a group. But as I said, these are all to involve you in the class more. And we're going to decide about the class rules. That's why actually I put it as deemed here. But one thing to consider, my class is about asking questions. I'm pretty much happy to say I don't know. So if you have a question and I don't know, that's actually a start point that we make a discussion and we learn together. And at the end, as I said, we're going to talk about the ethics and these cool things about the iron ring. So this is something that we have it in Canada, and when you get an engineering degree, you are eligible to get one of these rings. It's like it's not like a wedding ring, but yes, it's as cool as that. So back again. If you have any further question, you have my email address. You can contact me or Aiden. So thank you, Aiden. Back to you.
Thank you, Atta. And can I just say that if I would really like one of those cell phone cleansers. My own, we all know how grubby our cell phones get, and we're told constantly how disgusting they can be and how many germs they can carry. And yeah, you've just fed into my whole phobia around disinfections.
Yes, they
So,
said that the cell phone is more like is there than this thing actually. Yeah, that's toilet thing, which is
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and you also, towards the end of your presentation, also you made an important point, and I just want to make a note to our students here about the importance of turning up to classes, given your group work and discussions, etc. So, students not to depend on recordings. It's really, really important and necessary for students to turn up to these courses. Okay, so now we'll turn over to our question and answer platform, and we have some questions. So I'm just going to grab the screen back and move over to our Q&A and remind our students as well as to how to participate. Students, parents, sorry, whoever's attending today. So just to repeat, we are using a platform called Slido. I invite you to open a new browser and type slido.com, which is just here. You'll be asked for an event code, and that event code is FGL13. Uppercase, lowercase, doesn't really matter, FGL13. So I see our first question, which I guess I need to answer, and it's actually regarding how many students will there be in each academic course. And what usually for our future global leaders, we keep our numbers to high school class numbers, which is typically up to 35 students per class. We expect to do the same online. However, if a course is particularly popular with our students, we may consider hiring a TA to work alongside the professor, so that we can have a higher intake into a course. So I'll move on to the next course, and I'm going to direct this to you, Atta, in that, does the course cover computer or software engineering?
Yes, it does. So specifically, we won't go to the software or hardware engineering, but as an engineering field, computer engineering is going to be one of the topics that we're going to discuss about. But as I said, it won't be like we spend 2 sessions on the computer engineering. We're going to have talk about the whole concept, and then we move on to the other fields.
Great, thank you. I believe this is a question that I can answer as well. Does a fee need to be paid up front registration, or can we make 2 payments? Typically, we ask for full payment up front. Next question, I believe, is for you, Dan. For the Crime and Society course, what type of work will we receive? Projects, homework, presentations, etc.
Well, I'm planning on keeping the course quite light. I want it to be interesting and entertaining for students. They've got to be there for 15 sessions, really. But I will probably have one assignment, and that assignment will probably be the creation of a poster, a public education poster, which will give you a chance to describe what you've learned in the course in relation to a topic in crime and society, and to have that facing forward to the public. So finding a way to make knowledge from the university count in everyday life. And so we will probably have only that one assignment, and otherwise all the coursework will really be in the class, where I'll be trying to encourage people to speak and to participate as much as is possible. And sometimes people aren't comfortable with that, and I certainly wasn't when I was a student. I was afraid to speak in university, and it took me a long time to get that experience. So just because you haven't spoken, don't be nervous. You don't have to, but I will try to encourage people to share their perspectives as much as is possible, because that's how I learn and how we all learn together as a team.
And staying with you, Dan, the next question is the similar, how will you grade students for their work?
So again, I normally do lots of grading with students in my classes, but in this class, I don't intend to grade students. I want to engage you. I want to get to know you. I want to give you a chance to really understand what sociology is and whether this is a discipline that is interesting to you. My job will be to inspire you, and that really will be the grading portion is how inspired can I make you in the social sciences. But for you, there won't be a grade for you. There will be an opportunity to participate and to have a certificate at the end saying that you were a participant in a course, which really gives you a very close sense of what it's like to take a course of this nature, which I teach at the University of British Columbia.
Great, thank you. I will answer this question. We have a student who's obviously interested in one of our other courses, the biology course, and she's wondering if that professor will possibly do the same here. I do not have any plans for this professor to attend a similar session, but what I would encourage you to do, if you want more details, please write to us. I'll have our email address on our final slide if you're looking for a little bit more of a course outline, and we can reach out to that professor and collect that information. And for you, Atta, do I need to be good at math to take the engineering course?
So for taking the engineering course, I would say no. So this course is meant for you to see if you are interested to pursue engineering as a career, so being an engineer as your career. So, but of course, Ben, as an engineer, you need to be there is a significant amount of math involved in the engineering, but it's not like the pure math that you are thinking of. So that's something that actually we are going to discuss in the class. It's more like applied math. So aside from the mathematical knowledge that you need to have, we have lots of other part that you need to be sort of expert in, which dilute the amount of math needed for an engineer. So that's something actually we're going to talk a lot about in the class. But to take this class, I would say no.
Thank you. Well, the next question is, do we go through different types of engineering on a daily basis in the class?
Mm-hmm. So that's a great point. This is related to that biology question as well. So as I said, for the engineering fields, I'm not going to talk about them 2 sessions, for example, for each engineering field. Maybe just 1 hour. So each session is going to be 2 engineering fields. We're going to talk about them. And then we stick to the example. So for example, by example, I mean their application in real life. For example, the application of the biological engineering in water treatment, or the application of biological engineering in air disinfection, for example, or the application of mechanical engineering in, I don't know, in building a house. So where do they serve as an engineer when a house is built? So so I think that's answered the question.
Okay. Thank you. And the final question, or sorry, the final project, what is that going to be like in the engineering course?
So have in mind that so these classes actually are not homework dependent courses. So you are expected to have, I think it's 2 hours a week as a reading time. I'm not sure, 18.
I mean, it's 2 hours online, Monday to Friday, and then the expectation is anywhere between 2 to 4 hours reading, on the discussion forum with their peers.
Yeah. So great. Yeah. So based on that, actually, it won't be a very heavy project, but it's a real sort of case study or real problem that you're gonna you need to search about and see what's the role of different engineering is to answer that specific problem. And then as a group, you're gonna present it and we're going to discuss about it. So you will have enough time to present it and we make a discussion in our group. So and then your colleague will just grade you or mark you based on what you present. So it's mainly to brainstorm and to see how critical we can think after having like 3 weeks of discussion together.
Mm-hmm. Great. And I know I could mention here as well that we also have this virtual coffee lounge where we're hoping will be the fun. Well, the courses obviously are going to be fun and enlightening and interesting as well. But the virtual coffee lounge is going to be an opportunity for students to meet. First of all, their fellow learners in their course. They've got similar academic interests, but also beyond that group of your class, there's an opportunity for you to meet. And guiding, that will be students, the student space, the Future Global Leader student space per se, and then working in that space will be UBC students. So they'll be help guiding discussion, and we're currently working on that, so I can speak to that more at a later date. But certainly there will be an opportunity as well for the Future Global Leader students to engage with these students to get a better idea what university life is like. Now I'm potentially going to make I see a couple of questions have come in, so I'm going to make these some of the last questions because I know people have commitments at 5 o'clock. So Dan, if you don't mind, I'm going to highlight another one first because are there additional information sessions? Oh, it's not letting me do that. Are there additional information sessions on the other courses available? We don't have those planned right now, but I would encourage you to subscribe to our website. And as we plan information, if we plan any more information sessions, we will have information in those emails. So Dan, in the Crime and Society class, will be assigned or encouraged to do certain reading outside of the live classes?
Yes, but this again, I want you to be inspired. And so I'm going to pick readings that are suggested readings. And if you're inspired to read those, I encourage you to, and I will be referring to them in class and giving a sense of them. The other issue is if students are interested in more reading or more material in a particular area, then I can provide that for any students, and sometimes do. So really, it's up to what you want as a student. How much reading do you want? I have suggested readings that emerge from everything I talk about, but again, I want it to be something that inspires you. I think that's what makes this type of learning interesting, is that it's something that you're keen to dig at more. So that would be my answer.
That's great. Thank you, Dan. And the final question, which again I will answer, is will the course be strictly online? Yes. For example, if the COVID situation in BC improves. I mean, for sure, summer 2021, we made that decision earlier. It is online for summer 2021. However, we are hoping for a summer on-campus experience in 2022, and those dates are on our website as I speak, along with our dates and fees for 2022. However, the courses, they will be available in the fall of this year, what courses we will be offering. So fingers crossed that we will be able to run in summer 2022. And I'm just going to quickly move over to my last slide, which is just want to make sure that is my last slide. Thank you. Can I just make sure that everybody's looking at my last slide because there's some important information on it?
Not yet, Aideen.
It is, yes. Okay, thank you.
No, sorry, it's not. We're
Okay,
looking at
thank you.
Slido.
So let me just.
Great, thank you.
There we go. We have 2 minutes. I'm cognizant of time. As I say, I know people have to be places just after this, but I want to thank everybody for being here. In particular, Atta and Dan, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing insight into what your course will be this summer. Really informative, and I honestly feel that students that are interested are walking away with a really good sense of what the course is going to be. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to our our students and parents that are here today with their questions. Very much appreciated as well. Thank you to my colleague Olga in the background, keeping things running technically perfectly. Thank you so much. And for anyone that needs to learn any more, this is our phone number, a local number 822-1444, or if you have questions, so we have on our website is xl.ubc.ca/future, where you can direct any questions to. So it's just 5 o'clock. I will bid everybody goodbye, stay safe, and hope to see you all this summer. Take care.